On the morning of March 15th, 44 BC, Julius Caesar's wife begged him not to go to the Senate. She had dreamed of his murder. She was terrified. She asked him to stay home. He went anyway. By the time that day was over, the most powerful man in the Roman world was dead. Stabbed 23 times by men he had trusted, promoted, and in some cases, personally saved from execution. And the senators who killed him, convinced they were saving Rome, would instead unleash a chain of events that destroyed the very republic they were trying to protect. Gaius Julius Caesar was born in Rome around 100 BC into an ancient but not particularly wealthy patrician family. His family claimed descent from the goddess Venus herself, a useful piece of mythology in a city where divine ancestry still carried political weight. But a famous name without money or power meant Caesar would have to build everything himself. His early life already showed the kind of nerve that would define him. As a young man, he was captured by pirates in the Mediterranean. Most captives stayed quiet and compliant. Caesar reportedly joked with his captors, told them the ransom they were demanding was insultingly low, and promised to have them crucified once he was free. He was released, he came back with a fleet, he crucified them. Back in Rome, Caesar threw himself into politics with relentless energy. He was charming, brilliant, and deeply calculating. He spent lavishly on public games and events, making himself enormously popular with the ordinary people of Rome, the class that actually voted. The Roman Senate watched this with growing unease. In 60 BC, Caesar formed an alliance with two of Rome's most powerful men, Pompey, the celebrated general, and Crassus, the wealthiest man in Rome. Together, the three of them effectively controlled Roman politics. The Senate could argue all it wanted. These three men had the money, the armies, and the popular support to simply ignore it. Caesar was appointed governor of Gaul, the vast region that is now roughly modern France and Belgium. What followed was 8 years of brutal, brilliant military campaigning. Caesar conquered tribe after tribe, pushed Rome's borders further than they had ever reached in that direction, and wrote detailed accounts of every campaign that Romans back home devoured eagerly. By the time the Gallic Wars were over, Caesar commanded an enormous, battle-hardened, deeply loyal army, and he was the most famous man in the Roman world. Then the Senate made a move. Pompey, once Caesar's ally, had drifted toward the senatorial faction that feared Caesar's growing power. They ordered Caesar to disband his army and return to Rome as a private citizen. If he did, he would be vulnerable to prosecution by his enemies. Caesar stood at the Rubicon River, the boundary he was forbidden by law to cross with an army. He crossed it. That single act began a civil war. There was no going back, for Caesar or for Rome. He reportedly said something to the effect of the die is cast, acknowledging that what came next could not be undone. Pompey and most of the Senate fled Rome rather than face Caesar's legions. Caesar entered the city without a battle. What followed was years of pursuit across the Mediterranean world. Pompey fled to Greece. Caesar defeated him there. Pompey fled to Egypt, hoping for sanctuary. The Egyptians, wanting to please Caesar, had Pompey assassinated as soon as his ship landed. When his head was presented to Caesar, he reportedly wept. Pompey had once been his ally, his son-in-law, his friend. Whatever Caesar had wanted from this war, it had not been this. In Egypt, Caesar met Cleopatra, the young and politically brilliant queen fighting her own civil war against her brother for the Egyptian throne. Caesar sided with her, helped her secure power, and remained in Egypt for months. The two had a son together, though Caesar never formally acknowledged the child in Rome. After defeating the last of his opponents across the Roman world, Caesar returned to Rome in triumph. He was now the undisputed master of the Roman world. No rival remained standing. In early 44 BC, Caesar declared himself dictator for life. In Rome, a dictator was a legal emergency position meant to last no longer than 6 months. Caesar made it permanent. To many senators, this was the moment it became clear. Caesar intended to be king in all but name. And the Roman Republic, which had governed for nearly 5 centuries, was finished. The conspiracy formed quickly. Marcus Junius Brutus was Caesar's close friend. Some ancient sources suggest Caesar considered him almost like a son. Brutus had even fought against Caesar in the Civil War and been personally pardoned. But Brutus believed the Republic was worth more than any friendship. Cassius, more driven by personal rivalry, recruited him to the cause. On the morning of March 15th, Caesar's wife Calpurnia pleaded with him to stay home. She had dreamed of blood. A seer had already warned him to beware the Ides of March. A friend sent a note warning him of the plot. Caesar reportedly carried it to the Senate unread. Caesar entered the Senate chamber. About 60 men in that room were involved in what was about to happen. They had disguised their weapons in togas. One senator approached Caesar with a petition. As Caesar turned to read it, the others moved in. The first blow came from behind, then more. Caesar tried to fight back, pulling his toga over his face as the blows kept coming. 23 stab wounds in total. Physicians later determined only one was fatal. He fell at the base of a statue of Pompey, the man he had defeated, the man whose death had made him weep. The conspirators raised their daggers and called out words about liberty and the Republic. They had expected Rome to celebrate. They had expected the people to cheer. Instead, the streets fell silent. And then the mood turned. Mark Antony, Caesar's loyal lieutenant, delivered a funeral speech over Caesar's body. He read Caesar's will aloud. Caesar had left money to every ordinary Roman citizen. He had left his private gardens to the public. The crowd that had been uncertain became furious. Mobs attacked the homes of Brutus and Cassius. The conspirators fled Rome. The assassination that was supposed to save the Republic instead plunged it into another civil war, one that would be its last. Within 2 years, Brutus and Cassius had been defeated at the Battle of Philippi. Both took their own lives rather than be captured. The men who killed Caesar to save the Republic died before they ever saw it again. From the chaos that followed emerged a young man named Octavian, Caesar's grandnephew and adopted heir. He was 18 when Caesar died. He would spend the next decade methodically destroying every rival who stood between him and total power. In 27 BC, Octavian became Augustus, the first emperor of Rome. The republic the conspirators had killed Caesar to protect was gone. In trying to stop one man from becoming king, they had simply delayed the inevitable by 13 years and guaranteed it would happen in blood. Caesar's name outlasted his empire. The word Caesar became the title for every Roman emperor who followed. It gave the world Kaiser. It gave the world Tsar. He was stabbed 23 times by 60 men who feared what he represented. And everything they feared came true anyway, the moment they struck him down.